coverage. We're here to talk about the Startup Mahakumbh, which is one of India's largest events, which brings together startup entrepreneurs, government leaders, members, and to talk about this growing ecosystem. And today I have three guests here with me who are going to do just that. They're going to tell us how the startup ecosystem is growing and what the government is doing in order to help this ecosystem. So let me just introduce who I have on the panel. First up, I have Shri Amardeep Singh Bhatia, who's the Secretary of the DPIIT. Then I have Archana, who's the founder and managing partner at Rukam Capital. And Sanjeev Bikhchandani, who's the founder and executive vice chairman of InfoEdge India and is sometimes known as the father of Indian startups as well. So thank you so much, all three of you, for joining us. This is a huge event. It's the coming together of a lot of great minds. So I want to start with you first. At the onset, if you can tell us, what all is the government doing at the moment to help the startup ecosystem?
First of all, let me talk about DPIIT. DPIIT has a number of schemes which we have. The Fund of Funds scheme is there, which helps EIS provide funds further to startups. Then we have the Seed Fund scheme, through which we again reach out to startups through incubators. And we have this Mahakumbh also, this Mahakumbh, Startup Mahakumbh, which is the second edition, which will be running this year. And this is a much bigger event than, well, the first one was also pretty big. So this year we are having huge participation from other countries. Around 60 countries are participating. We have a much larger participation of startups in terms of the startups coming from the number of states, in terms of the number of sectors which are coming. So this is an exposure to startups. We also take startups out to various startup events across the world. So that's part of what DPIIT does. DPIIT also recognizes, gives the basic recognition to a startup. So a startup gets registered, so that registered startup then can access a lot of incentive which other departments in the government use. It can also access various schemes which are run by. It also can avail of various benefits through reduced compliances which have to be adhered to by the startups. In addition to what DPIIT does in across the startup ecosystem, we have sector-specific programs and schemes which are run by various departments. We have, for example, space department. It has its own scheme to incubate startup. The defense production ecosystem, again, there's a lot of promotion for startups. We also have Ministry of Electronics and IT. They have also a huge ecosystem which is available for startups. There are a number of other initiatives which are also there.
Okay, that's great to hear. Archana, come in on that. This is second edition of the Startup Mahakumbh, so there are very high expectations. What can startups or entrepreneurs expect this time around?
So I want to start by saying it's the world's biggest startup event. Not India's biggest event, it's the world's biggest, because in terms of size and scale, it is truly gigantic. You know, India is number 3 in the world when it comes to the number of startups and, of course, the number of unicorns. So, you know, it was important to have an event that was a physical manifestation of that stature that we have in the world. And of course, that stature has been achieved because of DPIIT and all the hard work that the government has done. You know, the Prime Minister has done. I mean, Startup India started 9 years ago. And all of those things have come together to really incentivize startup. It's become mainstream. So obviously we needed the world's biggest event, not
Not just
a event,
India's,
not just
any event.
Yeah. So that was the whole point to begin with. And I think for startups, I think we in the organizing committee and of course DPIIT, we are very, very aware that startups have to gain something tangible out of it. So this time we've got the Maharati Challenge, which is a grant giving sort of exercise for a large number of startups, which, are at a very, very early stage. There are now, mechanisms who we want investors to meet the participating startups, the ones who are putting up their pods. Government interface is very important because in India and anywhere else in the world, policy plays a critical aspect, right? So startups are small; they don't have access to government otherwise, right? So this becomes a good sort of meeting point for startups to come and talk to the government in a friendly environment, in a congenial sort of environment. And then, of course, there are the corporates. So there's hope for business as well.
That's amazing. So access, I think, is one of the big things that startups need at the moment.
Yeah.
And you're providing a conducive environment for that. I'll come to you for more on that. But Sanjeev, how is the startup ecosystem right now? Where are we at from your vantage point?
I think it's healthier than people think. I did look at it 4-5 ways. How many people are trying to do startups? That's a very healthy number, and it's growing. More than a lakh, more than lakh and a half registered startups. If you take unregistered, it'd be 5-6 lakhs, right?
Now, there's the Nandan Nilekani number. He says that in 2035, we have 1 million number of startups in India. Wow. That's a big number.
So number of people trying, quality of people trying, to do startups. I think very high quality. I think what has happened is that over the years, over the last couple of decades, startups have become, entrepreneurship has become a mainstream career option for very many educated young people. So India has always been an entrepreneurial country, but it used to be that, you'd be from a certain business caste or business family or business community to actually be an entrepreneur. Otherwise, people who had gone to the good colleges and got an education and become engineers or MBAs or whatever, their aspiration was to do a job. And that's what the parental expectation also was. I think parents now happy to see that children doing startups. I think young people want to do startups. I remember when I was at business school, there was a class of 175. If you did a poll, let's say, how many of you will become entrepreneurs? Maybe 10, 15 hands will go up. At some point in time in life, not immediately. Maybe 10, 15 hands will go up. Right now, it's about 40% in a class of 430. Okay, that's about 150. That's 10x. So obviously,
What do you think has led to this appeal over the last 10 years?
I think people have succeeded doing it. I think their stories, their role models. There are.
I think the government support is a very big factor. In India, parents want their children to do something that the government has put its stamp on.
Correct.
I do think that's a very
Not only that, it's also the success stories which have come out. So in fact, the last couple of years, my colleagues and also you interact with your age group and you see their children coming up. So quite a lot of them want their children to work in startups to get that exposure. Why? Because of the success which is surrounding the startup. That's very important that we have some success stories. And that's what he's telling.
And then the government role also. See, Sarkar ne sorted the for startups for the last 10 years. But one thing stand out of those 100, and that is the fund of funds for startups.
Okay.
The government of India has invested 10,000 crores from its balance sheet through SIDBI into Indian venture capital funds. So 95% of Indian venture capital in India was coming from overseas. And nothing wrong with that. We do need foreign capital. But you also want domestic capital because that's more stable. I recall in the year 2000, we had just raised our first round of venture capital from ICICI Venture at InfoEdge. And the meltdown happened. And all venture capital vanished, except for one or two funds. And those two funds were Indian funds. So you do need a domestic venture capital industry because strategically you want stable capital. You don't want capital that can vanish in the event of a global disruption. And therefore, it's really important that you're going to get capital. And the government fund of funds for startups did that. And now
administered by DPIIT and the new fund of funds that was announced in this budget. So, the government is doubling down with risk capital.
That's actually a very good point you brought out. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this because, this is a time when there is a bit of global turmoil going on. And in order to get more funds into the startup ecosystem, whether it's domestic or international, what more do you think needs to be done to make the environment more conducive?
So you see, the government has a very large fund which is focused on R&D. So there's 1 lakh crore which has been earmarked for R&D. Now, but a large part of that actually, we expect that it'll help in generating the innovation which will be commercialized by startups. So that's the industry academia collaboration which is going to happen. So that's one part of it, government spending money here. as Archana mentioned, we have another 10,000 crore Series B or Series 2.0, you can call it, fund of fund, which is going to come in, which is again the Series A, the fund of funds first part. That through 10,000 crore, it helped us garner around 91,000 crore for the entire ecosystem. So we expect this 10,000 crore also will do something similar, if not more, going forward. In addition, the specific sector-specific funds which are being launched, those also help in garnering a similar amount of money. Suppose a 1,000 crore fund is launched by the government, so another multiplier of 5 or 6 will help mobilize.
So you see, I think what happens. The fund of fund for startups will take about 15-20% of our VC part. The fund money has to get the rest from other sources. तो अगर आपने 20% DPIIT ने या SIDB ने 20% दिया, and that's 10,000 crores, so it'll be a 51 crore total fund. And that's the kind of investment.
So globally now, when SIDB participates in a fund, it's a very, very positive cue for foreign LPs to consider a domestic fund. That GP may not be well known otherwise to their LP. So SIDB's participation becomes SIDB is administered by DPIIT, right? So what happens is, and the thing is that the way DPIIT is looking at the new 10,000 crore fund of fund, it's also very forward looking. So it's a little ahead of the curve, which is of course important for risk capital, so that the next generation of startups and the next generation of verticals are adequately capitalized with risk capital.
So in terms of consumer tech, right, whether we're talking about quick commerce or consumer tech overall, how do you see the turf right now?
So I think there is ample risk capital available at the seed stage, friends and family round, angel round, even up to Series A. Series B, there's a bit of a cruel cut as compared to what it was 5 years ago. And that's a manifestation of the fact that investors are liking what is selling right now. They will think and then invest beyond the point. So if by Series B, you've not demonstrated something as a startup, you may have a bit of a challenge. But I think that's fine. That's market discipline and it's good. And it's got to do with the liquidity available in the market. When there was ample liquidity till 2021, there was one environment. Today, there's another environment. But, markets have ups and downs and it's okay.
Okay, just one follow-up question there. In terms of, you said that, in Series B is where that cruel cut comes in, and there's a little bit of a rethink on investments, right? If that is the case, then is there a sort of a winner-takes-all kind of a situation that's playing out, especially in sectors like quick commerce?
So winner-take-all is a characteristic of the market in each particular market, and not necessarily because of availability of funding. But it's like this, companies get funded on promise and on achievement. Earlier, till about 2021, people were willing to wait for Series B and C and still fund them on promise. Now it is Series A is on promise. Series B, show me some achievement. It's about where you draw the line of promise to achievement.
100%. So, we started off by saying that the Startup Mahakumbh is the world's largest platform for startups, an event for startups over the next couple of days, right? Can you tell us from the government standpoint, where do you see this entire startup ecosystem head? What is the, say, 5-year game plan? What's your prognosis?
As pointed out by Archana and Mr. Bikhchandani also, we have grown in certain specific segments, B2C especially, but we need to widen it. So I see another 10 years down the road, we'll have much more who are in the manufacturing space, much more who are in the tech space. Already that movement is happening, and we'll have much more funding available, much more maturity, much more pipe is being created in India through the startups and getting registered. And I see the impact of startups also happening in that trade front, more of startups getting into exports, in the product space, So that's something we are hoping, and we expect that in the next 10 to 15 years we should be.
Okay. Archana, what about you? For startups to make in India for the world, what is the future looking like?
The future is very bright overall for Indian startups. Look, I think the market discovery for startups for their products is an important part of their evolution. Whether they serve the Indian market, whether they serve parts of the global market or all of the global markets, I think it's a journey. And I don't think we need to, over sort of emphasize on this aspect. I think it's a good aspiration to have and a good ambition to have. But, there are very few homogeneous markets like India. So there's US, China, and us, right? And I think it's an opportunity which is really deep. So there is also a case to be made for building for India from India, because wealth creation and building technologies and products and services for India is extremely important. So if you look at the global leader, how did they become such a large economy? That was the strategy, right? Global markets are enticing, but we need to look at how do our markets become bigger. And that's what a great founder in a startup does, right? A great founder in startup creates their own tab. And India is at that inflection point, and from the size of the economy today to getting to $10 trillion, where will that come from? It'll come from the growth of these startups. And I think that wealth creation, building for India, to me, is a much higher degree of purpose, to be quite honest. Because I do think that we take that achievement too lightly. How many founders or how many sort of promoters have such a great market available to them?
Absolutely. And such a huge demographic dividend
Exactly,
as well, right?
exactly.
To play along with. So building for India in India is something that D2C, I think, has cracked. Like a lot of D2C brands now have replaced these traditional global brands, right? Whether it's in food, whether it's in apparel, whether it's in
Beauty.
suitcases, beauty, anything, right? But like Sir was saying, what about other sectors, whether it's manufacturing, whether it is other industries, large-scale industries?
If we don't fix our manufacturing, look, that's the base for everything, right? The day, a perfect safety pin is made, that's when you have space rockets. It's the same continuum. So I think the government's push in manufacturing is very critical. And again, how do you revive or how do you energize any sector? It's through startups. Why are legacy companies in D2C consumer now suddenly waking up that there's a whole new consumer which they ignored? So it's the same thing in manufacturing. There has been so many changes. Technology is coming in. AI will change manufacturing as well, right?
Absolutely.
So what should we do? It's like the way we leapfrog from landlines to mobile phones. I think that's the inflection point for manufacturing in India, and I think it will be a game changer for India.
So what do you think the government has done, and what is the government doing at the moment in order to sort of, augment this process of pushing more manufacturing within startups?
So Startup Mahakumbh, last year also, this year, we have a whole pavilion. So the whole event is, divided on thematic pavilions. And we've actually got a pavilion on B2B manufacturing, precision manufacturing. And defense and space tech is part of that pavilion for the same reason. Like I said, it's the same continuum, right? I mean, if you want to excel in deep tech, how is that going to happen without manufacturing, right? You can't have theoretical science. You have to have material and theory. I mean, actually, science, like what Sir was saying, that connector between academia and industry, how does that happen? It'll only happen if there's a connector there. And then that gets translated to something that the market wants. Which is what a startup's key role is, that, right? To find that sort of, and of course, I mean, DPIIT is working on a whole bunch of initiatives for manufacturing specifically, because I think it's very important to put it front and center.
Correct.
If we don't even talk about it, if it's somewhere in the shadows, I think we are going to lose a very big opportunity. I think people, in all the fancy sort of jargon of deep tech, AI, we miss what is important. I mean, that base of man, without that, I think it's a pipe dream.
So, he brought out an important point that for any country, right, the ease of doing business is something that countries, governments are constantly working on so that more foreign and domestic capital comes in. What do you think is the need of the hour for the government to do, and perhaps that the government is even working on to make sure that the ease of doing business, we sort of move up in the ranking?
So we don't have any ease of doing business ranking as of now. That has been done away with. Earlier, World Bank used to come out with, but they've come up with a new framework. We have been actually on ease of doing business for quite some time now. For the last 10 years, we've had this focus on ease of doing business ranking with the states. We are working with a business reform action plan. Every 2 years, we do an assessment. We give a long list of things which the states can do, and we work with the states to see that they are able to do those reforms. And these reforms are across the entire spectrum of what the businesses do, right from the starting of business to their operating life cycle to the exit of a business for whatever reasons. There are changes, very good changes, which have taken place. You look at some of the states, you look at Tamil Nadu, you look at Maharashtra, which are the well-performing states. You look at Telangana, you look at Andhra Pradesh, some of the systems they have put in place, whether it is the single window system or whether it is giving incentives on time. These are excellent systems, and that's where actually investors are going accordingly. But the other states are also picking up. Similar incentive, the changes have been made in Odisha also. In UP also these changes are taking place. In Assam also these changes are taking place. Rajasthan also. So other states are also picking up. In fact, we have a separate great initiative which is going on at the moment, where a secretary level officer is going and working with the chief secretaries together to push this deregulation and ease of doing business agenda further. But in addition to this ease of doing business, I'd also like to point out, government has also been focusing on the other factors which affect the cost of doing business. Logistics is one thing where government has put in a lot of effort. We have the national logistics policy. We have the PM Gati Shakti thing, through which infrastructure has been provided across the country. Infrastructure connectivity, the last mile connectivity has been provided to businesses, and costs have come down. So it is not only at the central level, but at the street level also this has happened. We have also acted on the land front. We have the NICDC, the National Industrial Corridor Development Corporation, which is developing 20 industrial townships and providing plug-and-play facilities to industries. 4 are ready. Another 4 should be ready in another 1 or 2 years. And another 12 also should be ready 2 to 3 years. So that's something which is also impacting the cost. So if you are able to provide land at a reasonable cost with plug-and-play facility, that also reduces cost. So labor also we are similarly addressing by providing skills, and one can go on through so many initiatives with the government has taken, which are aimed at manufacturing. The government has also now the manufacturing mission in this budget. So that's the work is ongoing on designing it, and hopefully we'll be able to roll it out very quickly.
Okay, that's a lot of work that the government is doing, whether it's on logistics, on bringing down costs, on land, etc. So let's try and just, wrap this up, because we have the event which is expected to be a coming together of so many different stakeholders, right? Whether it's global leaders, local leaders, you have industry experts, you have entrepreneurs. So what is in it for, say, that startup founder who is sort of looking to get access to all of this?
Ease of doing business.
Yes.
मैं कहानी सुनाऊं?
Of course, please.
So in 1996, so I'd been an entrepreneur 6 years, and I was doing a whole bunch of small stuff: salary surveys, databases, trademarks, teaching, training, whatever came my way to life. October 1996, I visited an IT expo in Paradimana called IT Asia. It was organized by CII. Right? And I used to go there every year. There would be 2 or 3 pavilions of stalls of big companies, big stalls of big companies. Microsoft, Hewlett Packard, Compaq, Dell, Sun, all these big companies, which frankly, somebody in my position could not afford those products. So I was not interested. But there used to be this one pavilion, which was this tiny 300 companies, stalls, all sorts of it. Right? So somebody is doing, computer-based tutorials, somebody is doing the little software accounting package, somebody is doing just providing small-time software services. And I saw one little stall which said www.
Okay.
I didn't know what it was. And I went there and the guy explained to me email, internet, this, that, whatever. And that's when I said, let's just take jobs from newspapers around the country and put it on the internet and see what happens. And that's when Naukri was launched. So you'll benefit in many ways if you're a startup, whether you're exhibiting or you're just visiting, or if you're a student with some dream, sometime I'll do something. Simply by talking, interaction, getting ideas. When you have 3,000 startups exhibiting, when you've got maybe a few hundred investors there, when you've got a whole bunch of people, giving talks, and look, even if you just come for the food, you'll have a good time.
Even the food is by startups, by the way. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the F&B is by startups. So, it'll show you how robust the Indian startup ecosystem is.
Okay.
So, Naukri.com paida hui thi out of a exhibition like this.
Wow, that's amazing to hear. A final word from your end, Archana, and of course, I'll get some parting thoughts from sir as well. In terms of, you mentioned a lot of things that India has done and should do to get a larger seat at the global startup table or global manufacturing services industry, right? When you compare yourself with, when you compare India with China or the US, where are we at right now? And how much do you think needs to be done?
Our dreams are bigger than both these countries combined. I think our entrepreneurs are dreaming bigger than I think what most people realize, even globally, I would say. And I think it's a matter of time that, our founders will surpass these two countries that are ahead of us. And I don't say this, lightly or just because, there's Startup Mahakumbh coming ahead. But when you interact with founders from tier 2, tier 3 cities, and even here, I mean, in the metros, because a lot of founders who come into the metros are also coming from tier 2, tier 3, right? I mean, so it's not some mythical piece that I'm talking about. And there is now a real burning desire, to be bigger, better, and to show the world, what we are capable of. So it's a function of, I think we underestimate how a supportive ecosystem matters, right? So Silicon Valley matters because of the ecosystem. It's not just that people are brighter over there, or something is magical happening. So now, and India is really lucky. Instead of having one Silicon Valley, we are spread across the length and breadth of the country, right? So Delhi, NCR, Bombay, Bangalore, Chennai has emerged really well. So I think it's really a great thing when there is that kind of collective energy. And I don't think, India's seen this kind of energy before, entrepreneurial
I
energy.
agree with you completely. In
So
fact,
how can the result be bad, right? It has got to be great.
I agree. And someone from my team was telling me the other day that 10 years ago, it was aspirational to be an actor, to be a film star celebrity.
It's still is.
Today's celebrities are startup founders, unicorn founders. Those are today's celebrities, and people look up to them. They're aspirational, right?
Also to be a podcaster sometimes.
Also an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, there's a shift definitely taking place. But sir, some parting thoughts from your end, because the government is doing a lot of great work in this space. What is your advice to that young startup founder who's perhaps going to be attending Mahakumbh, perhaps one day become like a Sanjeev Bikhchandani as well? What is your advice to him?
So before that, I was just going through the numbers given to me about the Startup Mahakumbh. We've got 3,000 plus exhibitors, 1,000 plus investors, 500 plus incubators and accelerators, 10,000 plus delegates, 50 plus countries, 60 plus countries, country delegations, all 30 plus states, 50,000 plus business visitors, 10 thematic pavilions. We have 11 stages with curated programming, 350 plus speakers delivering 150 plus sessions across 3 days. 130 plus mentors interacting with 1,000 plus founders across 2 days, all spread across 50,000 square meters of area. And we have a grand challenge also which is running, which is having around rupees 50 crore committed, if not more. I think 50 crores.
Yeah, it's almost 60 crores of grant money.
So we are issues. We are actually trying to bring existing corporates together, tie up with startups, pose issues and challenges to startups for them to solve, and in the process also commit funds. So around 60 crores have been committed by them, which is a good boost. Going forward, I think there's a very good future for entrepreneurs, and as Sanjeev ji said, now students and middle class families and families are looking at entrepreneurship as a good option. So they have a bright future. They can bring their ideas. You have the ecosystem available where the ideas can be turned into actually reality. So using the innovation which they have, we have youth always have the innovation, not the old foggy blackness. So that innovation, if they are able to convert it to reality, I think we are providing the ecosystem. They should be able to do it, and it's a very good future for our youth.
Okay. On that note, thank you so much to all three of you. And I'm sure this time's event is going to be even bigger than the last one. So all the best for that. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.